This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Recorded July 8th, 2015. Episode 257. An interview with Fabienne of KnitYak.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Dave Jones from the EEV blog.
And I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
And I'm Fobs, and I like hardware.
Well, then you are in the right place.
Tell us what you do. First of all, for a living, and then we'll get into the cool stuff you seem to be doing on the side.
Oh, I'm doing all the stuff on the side at the moment for a living.
Oh, okay, right.
Before that, I was working as a Linux sysadmin, building storage clusters for a managed hosting provider.
Yawn. Sorry.
That's pretty cool. I don't know.
Yeah, to our audience, that's like, yawn. Sorry.
Well, I built really, really big storage clusters, so they were pretty fun.
All right, okay.
And right now I do like hardware reverse engineering, and I'm building a textile company that has its own hardware and software.
And that
sweet
is awesome.
Thanks.
So textiles, now, we should probably clarify here as well. So is it like e-textiles, or is it all just normal? Not normal, because I've seen them. They're not normal. They're awesome. Is it non-e?
Yeah, currently it's non-e, but I'm hoping to be able to knit eventually with conductive thread and do things with where the whole fabric is actually a sensor. That's what I'm actually aiming towards in the long run, but I can't do that until I have industrial machines. So that's what I'm working on right now.
So what is your, how did you get into all this stuff? I mean, even how did you get into hardware hacking? I saw the old school, you were a former Hackaday writer, like back at the beginning. So that was, I didn't realize that, but how did you get started in all this?
Yeah, I have a sneaky handle where you can't tell I'm a woman, but the whole FBZ doesn't really lend itself to gendering, which is fine. So I started in New York City. I was living 2 blocks from World Trade Center. World Trade Center went down, I moved there 2 months before that happened.
Oh, wow.
And my job was actually 5 blocks from the World Trade Center, and I was the only one who could get there. So I went from intern to technical director at an audio facility, and I built the hardware, and I built all the servers, and built speakers, and went from just liking technology and audio to running Linux, making my own hardware, making my own circuits, and basically kind of leveled up in tech completely and sort of, self-taught in electrical engineering.
Wow. And that was all, that was just from that.
It was in a very intense 1 year period.
Yeah, I bet.
Right.
Wow. Was it like you were the only person that could get to it for an extended period as well? Is that why?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for about 6 months, nobody else could get in.
Wow.
Oh, really? Wow. It was
4
that
months.
Controlled, was it? Or did people just live far away? What?
Yeah, this was like the closest circle. So they had 3 concentric circles from the World Trade, and that was the closest one. And actually the first month...
And you weren't allowed to travel from one circle to the next? Sorry, I don't know the logistics of what happened.
Yeah, no, they just controlled it that you couldn't get in unless you lived there. And I happened to live there.
Got it. Okay, so you had to go through checkpoints and show your ID that you actually live there, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Oh, I didn't know any of that. Interesting.
So it was simultaneously my therapy and my job to go in and just sort of nerd out hardcore, just day and night.
Yeah.
And
it's like an escape, right?
It was my escape.
And all that went on for 6 months.
I think it was 4 months that they had the really strict controls.
Right.
And then, after, but about 6 months into it, I became the technical director because I had basically rebuilt everything in the studio.
Sorry, I'm going to ask more questions on this because I'm fascinated by it. I haven't actually heard this before, which is rather surprising. Was this to keep, sightseers out? What was the purpose behind it? To let, emergency crews, cleanup crews work?
Yeah.
To stop,
it was to keep it, so it was just emergency crews, just the EPA, which they didn't really do much, but supposedly for the EPA, for the emergency crews, and they kept saying so that they could rebuild the infrastructure because all the TV towers and cell phone towers were on top of the World Trade. On one of the towers.
Right.
And so you would see, I mean, for a year, we still had temporary trucks in the street with antennas and where they had basically pulled infrastructure back in.
Yeah, that'd knock out a ton of crucial infrastructure, wouldn't it? I didn't really give that a huge thought.
Yeah, there was a huge subway hub right underneath.
Yeah, there was.
Just recently reopened, and so they were rebuilding all of that. So there was a lot of heavy construction going on.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Jeez. Yeah.
So, could you tell us more about what? So you said audio stuff, but what were you? It was like a audio studio, or was it something else?
Yeah, it was a weird audio studio / art gallery, where there was 16-channel audio, but not in surround. They were kind of placed sculpturally in the space. And we invited artists in to come and make music on our system, and then some of them performed live concerts with the computers, and some of them, made sound pieces that would play on a loop kind of a thing, and some of them were interactive with sensors and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fascinating. We're so not art people, are we, Chris?
Yeah, I play piano sometimes, but I'm really bad.
Right. Well, yeah, you're. Well, I can play the didge a little bit, maybe.
Oh, really?
Kinda.
Certified Aussie here.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my god.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's what got you into it. I mean, that's really cool though. I mean, like, so and rebuilding that just from scratch. I mean, like, you had to like just kind of tear it all down and start it back up again, basically, or how did that go?
Yeah, well, it was sort of not really ever working, and it was the chance. So the founder was, I think, 81 at the time, 81 years old at the time when I joined, and he lived in the building. So it was just this 81-year-old man and I basically reinventing how we were going to do the whole thing, because it was the best time to go offline, basically, and rerun all of the cable runs, rebuild all the speakers, redo all the computer systems, like how everything worked, like redo all the crossovers for the speakers and everything. So
yeah, because you can't do that when you're normally performing, right? You can't when you have like a slew of artists coming through. Yeah,
right. Because we would have to have artists in to be able to, compose music in the space before they even performed, and they would have to be, and they had sort of a 4-week residency with our programmers. So each of them got a computer programmer assigned to them for the length of their residency. And so those residencies, you couldn't really work around it. It really took 4 weeks to kind of make something useful in the space because it was such a weird space.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you think you would have actually gotten into all of this eventually if this unfortunate / maybe fortunate event for you didn't happen?
I don't know. I mean, because that was also the period when I started using Linux and then BSD. So, I mean, that's a lot of things happened at the same time. So I don't know. And I started going to hacker conferences. It all kind of sort of lined up for me in 2001. So I don't know if it would have. It probably eventually would have happened,
right?
No, totally. I just
Yeah, that's
wondered if your life sort of it was heading in that direction anyway, and this kind of sort of, was the catalyst that.
I think it probably was. I mean, I studied mathematics in undergrad, so I had to code for that too, and I built an audio studio because I have a degree in music, so I built an audio studio and was coding in Max MSP before I moved to New York. So,
right, okay,
yep. So I was doing a little bit of stuff, but I definitely was not building my own electronics, and and then I did a course at ITP because I was actually studying at NYU at the time.
Sorry, I don't know what ITP is.
It's a school at NYU.
Right.
Interactive Telecommunications Program, I think, is what it stands for.
That's right. Yep.
And it's part of the Tisch school, and I was studying at a different school at NYU, but I was allowed to take classes over in Tisch, and so I did my first, interactive electronics project and breadboarded my first thing, and
that's what we want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I started, and I had no idea that what I was doing was hard. because one of my very first projects was this crazy thing using Cricut, which was this indoor positioning system by MIT. Some MIT, I think they were grad students, and they had released open hardware for it. And maybe it wasn't open. Maybe we just requested it and they sent us the hardware. I don't remember. But we built an indoor positioning system for dancers to do this interactive thing with my friend Ryan. And we had really low latency. We had like 20 millisecond latency from a dancer's movement to the audio or the light cues, which is really fast. And at the time, there wasn't really anybody doing indoor positioning like that. Not like discreetly and where you could actually see where it was moving. I mean, people would kind of fudge it and make, you know, the whole pattern sort of change, and you wouldn't really, you know, feel or see the movement. But we did that really early on.
Who did we have on, Chris, that did that? Where it wasn't Akiba? Was that? He worked on stuff like that, didn't he?
He definitely still works on stuff like that.
Was that positioning though? I thought his was more just RF.
No, I thought it involved positioning and things like that as well.
I think Fabs, you know Akiba, right?
Low latency stuff and
yeah. Oh, his stuff's great, and I think Akiba like also does movement based lighting and all kinds of stuff, not just for dance crews but all kinds of art. So
right, cool.
Yeah, but I think what's really cool is that if somebody's a beginner, they have no idea if something's difficult or not. And I've seen this happen with other people's first projects, that they're weirdly ambitious and then yet they still work.
Well, it's much easier these days to do ambitious stuff. Whereas if you tried to do a lot of this 15, 20 years ago, it was much, much harder.
That's true. But I was pre-Arduino. I mean, 2001, we were using PC 104 computers strapped to the dancers' backs.
Right. PC 104s.
And they were, they were so clunky. I mean, I made a housing for them, but they were not pretty. And, you know, I made these little like bolero jackets, and they were kind of like strapped on there.
Strapped on the back as like a little mini backpack. Because if people don't know, PC 104 was like an ISA bus. If you don't remember PC 104, you probably don't remember the ISA bus, but that was like before PCI and PCI Express. You know, the original IBM PC had the ISA bus, the industry standard architecture or whatever it was. And that's what it stood for. And basically the industrial people went, well, this IBM thing's pretty much a big standard now. How about we sort of just rearrange that and convert, instead of a plug-in cards, convert it to dual inline pin headers, and that, you know, with the same pin out, but that became the PC 104. So you'd stack boards on top of each other, just like stack Arduinos and things now, but it used the PC ISA bus. And so those boards you were using were probably, you know, 8088 processors, or was it like a really advanced one, like an 80386SX or something?
I honestly don't remember.
Processor.
I do remember that I hacked laptop batteries to make them work with it.
Nice.
And and then we had the MIT Cricut, and we had, each dancer had their own IP address. I don't remember what we were using for wireless cards. I think we were probably running Debian on the little machines on each dancer.
Right. Wow.
Oh goodness.
See, now I feel like you can already be like the old person, be like, I remember back in my day when I had to load down a dancer with 20 pounds of equipment, and they liked it.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
So you were running a full
a
full Linux stack, but still had that 20 millisecond delay?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I could. I probably couldn't even reproduce it today. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm impressed with myself thinking back to it. It was kind of weird.
Virtual pat on back.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's how I got into electronics.
So that was has it usually been art focused, or is it, you know, kind of been elsewhere as well, like industrial and other stuff like that?
Yeah, I mostly do weird things.
Weird's good. We like
so weird. I've built like interactive massage couch that knows whether or not you're friended in a social network, and if not, it gives you a longer massage to encourage you to sit with someone you don't know yet.
As you do. Yeah, that's just what's weird about that.
Incidentally, it's also the first couch that ran CouchDB, because we used CouchDB for the logging of all the events inside the couch. My friends at CouchDB were pretty excited about that later when I told them.
The headlines write themselves, right?
Pretty much.
Finally, our killer app.
What was the... I know I'm not supposed to ask this question. I always get in trouble for asking the question here, but what was the point of this couch? I know the answer is always the same, but I have to ask it anyways.
Yeah, we were supposed to integrate RFID into an interactive piece for an event, for a conference. I think it was like 3,000 people.
Wow.
And it was kind of a businessy conference that tries to think it's a tech slash art conference, but it was more businessy than that. But it was part of a hackathon, and we had a budget, and we were 3 of us who built it, so we just went for it.
Nice.
That one was built with...
there's all these business hackers all colludeling on the... That's not even a word, but on the couch, were they?
They were later, and there was a lot of... This was in the Netherlands, so there was...
After the beer started flowing.
Yeah, and there was a lot of, like, actual Dutch TV stations there, which was really strange.
Yeah.
And not a lot of podcasters or, online anybody. So
it was all mainstream media.
It was all mainstream media, and they were really confused about what it was. And our project was one of 12 really weird projects with RFID, and so they were just very confused by everything. But it was really fun.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so how fast did you have to build that kind of thing?
That was a 5-day hackathon, I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a hackathon put on by a group called Mediamatic, which is incidentally how I got into knitting machines later. So I built my first knitting machine project at a later hackathon from the same group.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. And you also ran your own hardware hacking thing at TorCamp or elsewhere? I mean, what's the Hardhack?
Yeah, Hardhack was its own standalone conference event thingy.
Oh, really? Okay.
For 3 years, I did it as a standalone event, and then I started doing it as sort of a sub-conference of other people's cons.
So this is actually your conference. You conceived it and ran it.
Yeah, it was mine.
How hard is that to do?
It was pretty hard. I mean, luckily I was living in Berlin at the time, and I had friends who had a space, the C-Base, which is a pretty well-known hackerspace in Berlin. But I had friends at the C-Base who were like, "Oh yeah, come throw your event at our place, and we won't charge you, and come do that."
Nice. Yep.
And the year before that, I had I took over a space which was an office that used to be the French and Italian embassy on the main street of East Berlin.
Oh, does it have like marble floors or something fancy like that?
No, but it had abandoned electronics in it because most of the building you couldn't go into because it was facing the American embassy at the time before they moved.
The paranoid Yanks.
And so they didn't allow anybody to be in this back 40 kind of this building. Mm-hmm. So we were in the front offices of it for the first year. I think we were 50 people the first year, and the second year when we were at C-Base, it was like 220 people.
Nice.
Over 2 days.
Wow.
And it was all hands-on. The big deal that I wanted to do with it was I didn't think people were learning about hardware by going to a talk.
Right.
So I thought, slides are just not kind of the best way for people to learn with hardware that really needs to be hands-on. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a demo that's hands-on, or even if it's, you're working on firmware or whatever, I think you learn a lot more when you're participating and not just watching somebody talk about it.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's why I started Hardhack.
So like everything had to be interactive then, everything had to have like pass around the widget while it's being discussed, that kind of idea, or?
Yeah, and most of it was all hands-on hardware workshops. And each time slot I made longer than an hour. So most time slots were 2 hours or 3 hours, which is the other thing.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
because
good.
The hardware takes a little bit more time.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, because hardware's hard.
It is.
Yeah, and there's
But that's what makes it fun.
There's atoms involved, right? So what happened to it? Because I'm First off, I'm intrigued by the hardware scene specifically in Germany, because I think we hear about CCC and stuff like that, and it seems like it's very big over there. But what ended up happening with all this stuff? Got out of hand.
So the reason I started it, the reason I started it was because at the CCC at the time during the Congress, which is between Christmas and New Year's, there wasn't really enough space for hands-on hardware hacking at the event. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was to some extent, but there wasn't really a place to like throw a workshop. There was space where you could like bring your own hardware to like work on throughout the event. In the Hack Center, which is the area that they had designated for it. And so I had lobbied, and eventually I said, well, okay, I'll just do my own con, because my friend Florian Hotawa was like, oh, just throw your own con, I'll help you do it. And so that's how the first year happened at those offices of the Italian and French embassy. And so then after that, the CCC made enough room. And I say the CCC, I mean, it's a collective group of nerds like you and me. So it's just a really big group of nerds. So it's, things move a little bit more slowly. So 3 years later, they ended up having enough space for hands-on workshops. And so I went and organized and brought in people to throw workshops and, made sure, facilitated that there would be room for places where we could solder, where we could make a mess and have good ventilation and really good table lighting and have longer time slots, and all of that happened. So since then, the CCC has had a huge, huge area for hands-on hardware hacking throughout the event.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm always a little disappointed just with the timing, just because I know that I'll never be able to get out to CCC, because it's like right during family time, like that time of year is...
Yeah.
My family, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, I had my family pretty trained. My parents live in the south of France, but I had my family pretty trained that I was just going to bug out, the day after Christmas.
Right.
Yeah.
So they knew that I would come early and then leave early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was invited there, and it was I would have had to leave because Australia's like a day ahead. I would have had to leave on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
To get to Germany.
Would have missed Boxing Day, Dave. I mean, you would have been whatever the
I
heck
would have missed
that is.
Christmas Day. I would have missed New Year's. The whole period. Yeah. So it was that was kind of vetoed.
Yeah.
So
Fobs, can you tell us a little bit more just about the hardware scene over in Europe? I mean, to be completely honest, we don't get a chance to speak to Europe as often, just because the timing where Dave is in Sydney and I'm here. So even in the UK, it's usually like midnight or 1 a.m. when we usually record. So harder for people that have always wondered that stuff too.
Yeah, the hardware scene's huge in Europe. I mean, just massive. Which is funny because you think Maker Faire, you think San Francisco, you think those kinds of things. But the hardware scene is really, really big in Europe. And
whereabouts in Europe is there like one hub that's sort of like the de facto place to be?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
is it because everything's so close in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, everything's so close together. You can get, you can ride the train and be in a different country in an hour, So
yeah, right.
It's and public transport is really, really good. And
yeah, exactly.
We have, cheap things like EasyJet, and you pretty much can get anywhere really cheaply. And
for $50 or something. Yeah, you can. Yep. Right.
So I see the usual suspects in all different countries. They pop up at all the different conferences or events or hackathons and stuff like that. I mean, I love the German scene. Because I love Germany, and I love Berlin, but there's a saying that Berlin is not Germany. It's,
right.
I mean, it's weird. It's it's the freaks. It really is the freaks, and it's good.
Like Austin is not Texas, right?
Assemblage of freaks.
Right, yeah.
Definitely. Just like that. Just like that.
Yeah.
So would English be the de facto language at these, or is there a de facto language? Does it become the language of the country that it's being hosted in? What's the...
Yeah, the main language is English, unfortunately.
Right. Unfortunately?
Yeah,
Why
I like languages, and I speak French and English and German now. I'm learning Chinese. I think languages are awesome, But no, the de facto language is definitely English.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
She's trying to say that we get away
I mean,
with a lot,
there's
Dave. Only being single language dum-dums.
Well, no, but that's common in the electronics industry. The de facto standard is English.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I feel super guilty when I was in Germany. I know that like everybody speaks perfect English there. I feel so guilty when I go to another country and I'm like,
yep,
hey,
and
stupid American here.
Yeah. I kind of made a point to force myself to learn German.
That's really good. Yeah.
I didn't right away. I didn't speak any German when I moved to Germany. So, and I didn't take courses until 10 months in. So my friends my German friends I have some German friends who are visiting Seattle right now where I live currently. And, speaking German with them and everything. And now I speak German. But at the time, even, one of my friends who's here visiting me, she, taught me my first word in German. And that was, I want to say 6 months after I really moved to Germany. So
wow,
I took my time, but eventually I got there. I worked my last 3 jobs in Germany completely in German. So
nice.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Interesting.
And how long were you there total?
8 years in Germany.
Nice.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost all of those in Berlin. A year and a half in the middle, I was in Cologne.
Nice.
Right.
What? So what brings you to Seattle then?
The Space Needle, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously the sunshine and the weather, right? I'm sure.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So my German husband and I took a year off and we kind of did a road trip through the U.S. and did Costa Rica and Hawaii. So we took 11 months to kind of figure out where we would want to land if it were in the U.S. And we chose Seattle, and that's where we ended up. And I just started a business here, which I am kickstartering. And
yes, we'll talk about that.
That's kind of why I moved here. It's a lot easier and advisable if you can to start a business in the U.S. than elsewhere.
Oh, interesting.
So
why is that? Is it a tax thing?
Yeah.
Is it a
how
market thing?
Yeah, how easy it is to set up a company. The support you'll have. So locally in Seattle, I have Seattle Small Business Association and Seattle SCORE. I have a free CPA through them, and he's top notch.
Wow.
Oh, is SCORE that's the mentoring organization?
Yeah. So that makes a lot more sense. If I want to do shipping logistics, it's a lot easier from specifically Seattle. So stuff like that. That's why I moved back.
Awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very informed decision. Seems like so that's really good.
Why shipping wise?
Well,
is it easier from Seattle?
We have Amazon here, so shipping pipelines are pretty easy from Seattle specifically.
Right.
I don't know if it's because traditionally it was the actual shipping hub because we have this huge port, but I mean Amazon's here now, so
yeah, and you guys make all the airplanes too, so.
Right, yeah, all that. Yeah,
so Boeing is here.
Yeah,
SpaceX is moving an office here. Pretty much.
Fluke is there.
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
Fluke is here.
Tech,
yeah. There's a lot of Bay Area startup transplants here. So, because it's currently cheaper than the Bay Area.
Oh yeah. Anything's cheaper than the Bay Area.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised, but
maybe not New York. Yeah.
No, but the housing market is spiking right now in Seattle because of all of the tech coming in.
Right. Interesting.
In the last 2 years, especially Amazon growing so quickly with AWS and everything. So.
Oh yeah. And the drone delivery. Oh yeah, I guess you could you could deliver textiles via drone.
I could do that.
Drone wearing a scarf.
Yeah. Nothing to see here at all, folks. No.
Okay, so let's hear about this. So I am very interested in this, both how you get started with it. I guess you mentioned that a little bit, but what were some of the early textile things you started doing with the math and the is it a knitting machine? Is that right?
It's a knitting machine. Yeah. So I started out with a consumer knitting machine as part of an art project with Travis Goodspeed and Aryan Sharpness. And we, in 4 days, I think, built a top scroller 8-bit video game with dinosaurs and banjos, and the winners panel was knit off of a hack knitting machine. So
that's awesome.
I had, yeah, it was pretty cool. So it was like pixel art in, knit, and then it was in this big window of the art space where we were. And we used the existing hack from Steve Conklin and Lady Ada Lamore Freed and Becky Stern. They had released a hack for the Brother KH930, which is a knitting machine from about 1983. And currently there's one company left making knitting machines called Silver Reed for consumers, but it's really, really crappy. Like, nobody really uses it. People still use the old ones from the 80s because they're battle axes and they work.
Yeah.
So what is this one that you want to buy?
Yeah, so
This monster thing, it looks like it needs a warehouse to fit in.
It does. So I actually have a light industrial space lined up to put it in Seattle. Because it's also very loud, and I'm going to be running it 24 hours. It's an industrial...
With Oompa Loompas. Yep.
Yep, it's an industrial knitting machine. I can't say the brand because they aren't sponsoring me. Oh,
yeah, of course you can.
There's only 2 brands anyway of industrial knitting machines. So,
right.
I really want them to sell it to me, so I'm trying to not anger them in advance. So I won't say their name.
How could you anger them when you're giving them
Here's
money?
some free advertising.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's the machine costs over $60,000.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So it's a pricey machine. I mean, I don't know what a pick and place costs nowadays, but it's
about that.
It's up
for
there.
A half decent one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about the same.
Yeah. So this machine the one I'm trying to get, is fully automated. Set it and forget it, walk away, and it spits out finished knitwear. It's a huge improvement from the, hacked consumer knitting machine, which costs about $800, give or take how many accessories you have. Used on eBay from 1983. Costs today $800. So it's a big upgrade from that because it can cast on and cast off by itself. Which is the first and last row. The first row you can do on the consumer knitting machines, but it's really fiddly. And the last row you can't do on a consumer knitting machine at all. You have to do it kind of a sewn bind off by hand.
Right.
So it's something where I could actually sell algorithmic knitwear. So I started...
Right, so you can just feed a file in.
Yeah.
Like, is it easy as feeding in your file and out it pops?
It should be.
It should be.
Again, I don't want to anger that company that I'm trying to buy the machine from, but currently their user interface is rudimentary.
Right.
So hacking will be involved still. That's the idea.
Right.
I'm not allowed to say that either because I really want them to sell me the machine.
I see. No, that's, I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
I was wondering about that if you'd have
that's...
to fiddle with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I am going to add other add-ons to the machine, which they can't get upset with. So other things I'm going to add on are, so a whole basically engineering tool chain for the front in software.
Oh, nice.
And probably extra things like tensioning devices for all the spools of yarn, the cones.
I thought it would have had that.
It has it, but it's not. It doesn't really do feedback in real time. So if there's a
like jam ups and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if you have a cone of black yarn from one dye lot and one from a different dye lot, but they're both black, they're actually going to have different stretch properties depending on how black they are.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
So the amount of dye on the fiber actually causes it to be less stretchy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I can picture that.
So that's the sort of things that people aren't really doing. And this is why you can currently buy 5,000 of exactly the same scarf. So if I were to produce something in China, I want 5,000 of exactly the same scarf in acrylic, no wool, no nice cotton, no nice materials. Just acrylic. I can order those for $1 a scarf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But it's 5,000.
Yeah.
But it's 5,000 of exactly the same scarf. And the reason that is because the setup time on the machine is so long for each new thing that they knit, whether it's a scarf or whether it's a sock or whatever they're making, that they have to knit 30 test knits, test prints, if you will, that come out of the machine, figure out which one's the best, and then use those settings.
Yeah.
This has direct parallels with pick and place machines. It's exactly the same thing. Take ages to set up. You have to do a little pilot production run to make sure everything's programmed right and everything's, all the orientation's correct and blah, 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 and make sure there's, all sorts of things. It's exactly the same. It's fascinating.
So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to kind of bring them into more of a CNC style factory something rather.
That's awesome. And you've got 14 days left on your campaign.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're 40% of the way there.
I'm 40% of the way there. Yeah.
Does it look like, what's it trending towards? Does it look like you're going to make it?
It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight.
Right.
I really hope it makes it. I've been very...
Everyone, jump on board. She'll send you a custom electronic. Can you get any pattern? Can people get like circuit pattern scarf or something?
Eventually. In the first round, I'm going to be doing elementary cellular automata, which is a mathematical pattern. Yeah. Elementary cellular automata. It's a very simple algorithm that produces an image using the rules from the previous row.
I actually do know a bit about that.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yep. It simulates life form growth and replication and stuff like that, right? This was big back in the 80s. People would do, on the early PCs, they'd write cellular automator software programs to simulate growth of little cellular organisms, and they replicate into different patterns and things.
Yeah, that's more Game of Life.
I know about that.
Game of Life, which Conway's Game of Life.
Game of Life, yep.
That's more of a two-dimensional cellular automata, but the one I'm using is a one-dimensional, which means it outputs a 2D image, whereas Conway's Game of Life is a 2D plus movement.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. So
it outputs a pattern. I'm doing it so that no two scarves are the same, so everybody gets a unique one. And some people have their favorite rule. There's 256 rules. Some of them are mirror images of each other, so there's not 256 completely different rules. Some of them are really interesting. Rule 110 is actually proven to be Turing complete.
What does that mean? Sorry.
By Matthew Cook. It means it's capable of universal computation. So you can build a computer out of it. This really, really simple system with these cells is Turing complete, which is really cool. So, you don't want your web app...
Hey, Chris, sorry,
I'm still
You don't want your
here.
web app to be Turing complete. You don't want your web app to be Turing complete. That means an attacker can make it do all sorts of things it wasn't maybe designed to do.
And why is that?
You want...
Sorry, I know. I get to play the idiot all the time.
Sit back here and laugh.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Turing complete means you can make a universal computer out of it. You could program it, so to speak.
Huh. So, okay, can you play that web app idea out a little bit more? So if you had a Turing complete web app, what would
that
happen?
means it's very attackable.
Somebody can hijack it and make it do nasty things.
And not just, so they can basically get into your server, which you don't want them to be able to. You want them to just be able to load your web app.
They can get in, they can reprogram it to make it
So is that just
do anything and have backdoors and blah, blah, blah.
It just makes the
necessary
attack
amount of-
surface, the attack surface becomes really, really large.
Okay.
So not just cross-site scripting, but any kind of input validation is probably totally wrong on it. So you could get in and wreak all kinds of havoc. So you really want your programs to be dumb, simple, stupid, and have all kinds of really good input validation when you write anything that's going to be facing the internet. And
got it.
Yeah, and then this, pattern that I can knit on a scarf, the fact that it's Turing complete is really exciting. So it doesn't just exhibit chaos; it exhibits these things called spaceships, which are these forms that move across.
Yes, I've seen those. Yes, they're awesome. They actually move autonomously across the surface of the pattern when you simulate them. And boom, boom. Yep.
So in Rule 110, there are these spaceships that move across the scarf, which, is a 2D image at the end, so it's static, but you can see it moving down the length and moving across. And those
Sweet.
And those are what Matthew Cook used to prove that Rule 110 is Turing complete.
Interesting.
It's a really, really
Chris is just
weird
so
paper.
confused right
I
now.
think he's spaced out. He's so confused. No, you see, you've got to read the book Chaos by James Gleek. You've got to read that. That'll fill you in.
Okay.
I believe it's in Chaos.
And so,
anyway.
so Fobs, where
think
are
it is.
these? So you have the code online, right?
Yeah.
But so the rules are part of the cellular automata.
Yeah.
Automata.
Automata.
So,
I can't
so these
say
are
that
all
either.
just then these are coded in. You're saying is that the idea?
Yeah, so the rules are basically an 8-bit code. So you have a binary number that you start with, and the binary number is what the rule is called. So Rule 110, you start with 110 in binary, and that's your rule for how the cells behave.
Huh.
In the pattern, yeah. So, and some of them have really interesting properties. So, like Rule 90 is actually has the potential to be Sierpinski's triangle. And then Rule 30.
Dave,
Chris is
no
lost
more
again.
mathematicians on the program. I'm sorry.
I at least have some clue what she's talking
Resistors,
about.
Dave. We need to have someone on that just talks about resistors. I need like a reset here.
Right.
This is
Okay.
Bob, this is
invited her on.
so
Don't blame
cool,
me.
but I have no. I mean, this is really good.
This is
'cause
very cool.
I need to learn some new things apparently.
Well, what's cool is that each scarf is different and they look interesting. They don't just look like static or noise or something.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll post the link to the wiki page too because I'm looking at all these. It's the random initial state on this page, and it's just showing kind of the ability of patterns here. So you're saying you can do any of these? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and then each rule, if you give it a different seed row or a different width, you have different outputs. So the examples I did on my Kickstarter page, I show Rule 110, and then there's 13 or 15 different iterations with just Rule 110 in the same width with different seed starting rows, and they all look different.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, it's nice. Did you know that scarves, knitting pattern, like coded things into scarves, actually dates back to World War II?
I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
There you go. Here we go. I am an expert on this. As it turns out, I'll tell you, apparently during the World War II, the Belgian resistance, they actually they got grandmothers to knit coded information into scarves so that they could actually smuggle them out.
Really cool.
And they actually got away with it. And apparently you can put up to like 120 bytes of characters knit into a scarf. So they were knitting like Morse code and all sorts of stuff into these scarves. And that's how they actually got, information out.
Cool.
The Belgian resistance. There you go. The reason I know this is because I went to the Ignite talk in Sydney a couple of months back, and there was this girl who did this talk on exactly this. She actually knits her own scarves, and she did a self-replicating mitten where it actually has the QR code knitted into it and the QR code goes to the source code for the knitting. So it's a self-replicating mitten. yeah.
And it's mittens all the way down.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll have to send you that video. You will love the talk.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fabs. You'll just, yep.
Yeah,
Just remind me at the end.
Yeah, I did a collaboration with Sam Muirhead where he put a QR code on his hat and linked to the pattern for how to make the hat.
That is really cool.
And we made it completely Creative Commons, so the rest of his hat had snowflakes that were in the public domain and just all kinds of stuff. It was really cool. So he made a beautiful video about it. You can look that one up too.
Great.
It's he did a whole year of open source. So for a whole year he tried to use everything in his life to be open source, from things he ate and brewed to things that he used.
Interesting.
Which is a really cool idea.
That is very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the original? So the brother that you're using right now, like what were like what's the actual interface to that right now?
Yeah, so it expects a floppy drive. But I emulate a floppy drive in the terminal with a little bit of hardware. And so then I'm completely in the command line talking to the machine, and it thinks it's plugged into a floppy drive.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you can just then feed it files and then it prints.
Yeah, it had a maximum memory of 200 pixels wide by 66 long. So for a wrap, which is like a really wide scarf, I had to load 7 or 8 images into the machine to make the whole length of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And what's the turnaround time on one of those things? I mean, like, is it actually that the brother couldn't do production style? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so it's hand crank.
Oh.
you pull the
Bob's here and
Yeah.
I'm exhausted getting through your Kickstarter rewards.
And steam comes out of it.
Yeah.
It's like big wheels turn.
Yeah, you crank the carriage across the bed of needles by yourself.
Right.
And because I was using double bed jacquard, which uses a smart bed that's controlled by the microcontroller and my emulated floppy drive, and the double bed that's dumb, that's just purely mechanical, that has a pattern on the reverse side, I have to manually change colors at the end of every other row.
Oh.
So there was no automated color changing, and there was and it was hand crank, and the machine is really fiddly as far as the left hand side would constantly drop stitches or not change the color properly. So you have to really baby it. So it would take, for the wrap, I think it took me about 8 or 9 hours hands-on on the machine.
Oof, yikes.
And then about 3 or 4 hours to cast off the last row by hand.
Yeah.
That's a slow Kickstarter reward.
So that's why I'm upgrading to an industrial knitting machine.
Right. So can I ask another question about that then?
Yeah.
How hard would it be to build, like, would it be like impossible to build one of these manually, the actual knitting machines?
No, I mean, there are people who are building open source knitting machines. They aren't color changing yet, so you can't knit patterns into them. But there's a really great one. I'm trying to remember the exact name of it.
OS Loom? I know I think I've seen them around here.
No, it's a knitting machine.
Oh, sorry, I don't know the difference.
Oh, a loom is weaving, where you have threads that you've already pulled along a bed ahead of time, and then you weave a second thread through those existing threads.
Oh, okay.
Knitting is one continuous thread that
Gotcha.
makes these loops that loop into the last row.
And it builds up one row at a time, right? If I'm using the right terminology.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's, knitting is, you can think of it as one continuous set of loops that are looped into the last row.
Okay.
Got it. And how does it do that mechanically? I want to know, I want to see this machine operating, all the guts inside operating. Like, I can just picture, robotic arms going around each other and twisting into knots. And
Arms
how
everywhere.
does it work inside, or is it impossible to explain? You have to see it.
Well, even if you see it, it's still complex enough that you're like, wait, how does that actually work? So I can explain. So there's a bed of needles that are flat, and they have hooks at the end that look like crochet hooks, but it's actually knitting. And those, a carriage has a set of pathways on the back of it with metal switches that you can switch, they kind of look like pinball flippers.
Okay.
Right.
And there are all different kinds of settings on the back of it. So if you turn the carriage over, it's a really complicated mess of mechanical switches. And on the machine side, there's magnets and a rotary encoder that talk to a microcontroller, and the microcontroller tells it how to set the needles for the next row. So it does what's called needle pre-selection, which is specific only to the brother machines. The other consumer knitting machines select on the same row. They don't pre-select for the next row. And the reason that's important is because once you can do that, you can manipulate the dumb bed of needles
Which
to
is
the
one
opposite
that...
of the front bed of needles,
Okay.
because it's for the next row. So you can actually set things that will affect the way things happen rather than things happening in real time, so to speak, I guess. I wouldn't call it real time, but...
So you're saying you can control the future?
You can control the future. So yeah.
The future is not set. It's what you make it.
Then it basically drags across these stationary needles, and then that's what actually does the...
with the magnet, with the rotary encoder and a magnet, it pulls the needle forward or not, depending on what the color is supposed to be for the next row.
So how long does a single row take, like when the machine's going across?
Oh, that's quick. That's like, that's one row.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But there's a lot of rows involved in making a scarf, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's faster than hand knitting. It's faster than hand knitting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So the idea of the Kickstarter is to actually set up a custom knitting manufacturing company.
Oshpark for
Is that the
textiles.
Right, Oshpark
Kind
for
of like the
textile.
Shapeway of textiles.
Shapeways. of
Right.
textiles,
Okay.
Kind of like
Shapeways of
the
textiles.
Uber for textiles.
We're not trying. We don't have any money to give you here, Fobs. Sorry, you don't need to say Uber. That only works on investors.
Yeah, be careful. There could be riots in the street. those French people, right?
Yeah.
That's really
Goodness.
so. Is there anyone out there doing custom at all? I mean, I know you said that it's really cheap to do, standardized stuff from China.
Right. There are a few. There's one in London who are they aren't doing custom yet. You can't upload your own designs or anything. But they have kind of a web app thing where you play with the pattern with your mouse and kind of distort it and stretch it and play with it. So you can like make a funky swirly houndstooth or, some kind of weird standard fashion thing. Stripes that are stretched and tweaked and that you tweaked yourself, and then they'll knit it for you.
Okay.
So they're doing that, and they just got a big chunk of funding. I think they just got equivalent of a $3 million US seed round
Whoa.
3 weeks ago, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's that limiting? And they still got money for that?
Yeah.
Sounds pretty, yeah.
And there's a secret project at Disney, which
Not anymore.
became not so secret because they sent out a job that they were looking for PhD students that do computer science to program knitting machines.
Oops. Dead giveaway. Someone in the HR department screwed up. Huh?
Yeah. So that
Yep.
so they're working on that.
So all the PhD knitting students are all fighting tooth and nail to get a job at Disney.
I think it was an internship for PhD students, which is crazy that they would try to hire somebody for that cheap. But
Yeah.
beyond that, there's Nike. So Nike has a research lab, and they do a fully knit upper with an industrial knitting machine. They aren't
that's like the upper is the tongue of
for the shoe.
Yeah.
No, the whole top of the shoe.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay. Oh, so they can do custom shoe.
Yeah, well, they aren't doing custom shoes yet, but I think they're trying to aim for that.
Yeah.
As I release all of
interesting.
the industry secrets, all in one podcast. They are, but they have to test, even if they go from a size 8 to a size 9, they don't have a way to scale up in software.
Yeah.
They have to knit 10 test pieces to make sure that the size is correct.
Wow.
But what's cool is they're knitting textured stitches. So it's knit on a flat knitting machine, but when it spits it out, it pulls the knit stitches pull it into the shape of the top of a shoe.
Oh.
Right.
So it's
interesting.
The way they have like ribbing stitches and cable stitches and stuff to pull it all together into a 3D kind of shape on the top of a shoe.
Yeah. So you're using wool on yours. Is it possible to switch in other like finer resolutions and stuff like that? Like it will eventually be able to get like tighter resolutions, get actual patterns, or not actual pattern. I mean like if I wanted to print my face on a scarf, like in a repeating pattern.
Right now you could.
I can just picture him at the next Maker Fair walking around. Hey, look at me.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you
My
could.
face
It would
on
be
a
pretty
scarf.
pixely right now. It's not the material that you use so much as the actual machine. So the machine I'm trying to get is more of a universal size, I would say,
Right.
for the knitting stitch.
Yeah.
But it's smaller, has a smaller space between the needles and smaller needles than my consumer knitting machine. So it will be finer than what you see in the Kickstarter.
So
I don't know how much finer. Currently I have about 61. I have 61 stitches across for a scarf. And I think that the industrial knitting machine is going to be somewhere more like 80 stitches across.
Okay. So still maybe a little blocky, but you can do.
Yeah.
a pretty good range there. That's interesting.
Yeah. Finer than hand knitting. Because the consumer knitting machine is finer than what I usually hand knit, even lace weight. I'm also a hand knitter. I didn't mention that at the beginning, as I've angered every hand knitter who's listening to this.
I learned how to hand knit at one point. I've forgotten it all, but I learned at one point. It was pretty cool.
It's like soldering.
Did you learn it from your grandmother?
I did, of course.
Sorry, Chris.
It's like soldering. Right. You could never forget.
No, I forgot pretty quick. Something about purling. Pearls. Something about pearls. I don't know.
Yeah.
Knit one, pearl two. Knit one, pearl two.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are the plans beyond the Kickstarter? You're looking to get more funding than that, or you're just happy to get your machine and start running?
The getting the machine is a really big deal for me because I've been working on this for 4 years. So the Kickstarter campaign I've been working on for about 4 months before it launched. But
they're not easy, are they?
No.
People think you can just slap it up there and
it's a roller coaster. It's crazy.
Yep.
But I did get posted in Boing Boing yesterday and Design Milk today, so those are good.
Oh yeah.
Good traffic producers, and I'm in Glamour magazine and Scientific American, which is a really weird mix.
Yeah.
So who knew that fashion and math could really go together?
Yeah, it crosses over that threshold of
it does.
A lot of everybody knows what a scarf is as well. Like, right? I mean, like there's some.
This is true.
It's like, oh, I have a little widget, and people are like, I don't even know what that's used for. So people know scarves, so that's a good start. And then you get the math people that confuse the hell out of me, and the coders and hardware people.
I'm sorry to say, but you probably won't get much business from Australia. So many backers from Australia.
New Zealand, though. It's cold there.
Oh, it's pretty cold in New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah, the other...
But, we just... Scarves, no. They're just not really a done deal here.
Yeah, I'm hoping to... I love tropical areas. I was in Costa Rica for 2 months in December and January, and Hawaii for the month of February. So eventually I'm hoping to do have a terry cloth machine, which is a machine that makes towels.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yes, nice. I'll take one of those, please.
Yeah, so not printed on, but actually knit or woven into the terry cloth. You have the pattern, so...
That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
Hoping to do that eventually. I would really like to do socks. There's color-changing sock knitting machines.
I would have thought, or is it just me because I'm Australian and we don't do the scarf thing, but I thought
socks.
Towels, towels and socks would have been more popular, more sort of universal than scarves.
Yeah, the thing...
Or is that just my... limited social
scarves aren't
outreach?
Necessarily universal. I mean, even some people in cold climates don't wear scarves, but it's a really easy first thing to do. But the machine that I'm getting can do shaping, so it'll be able to do the front of a sweater, the back of a sweater, the sleeve of a sweater separately.
Okay,
and then you would either sew it together yourself or find somebody locally to sew it together for you. My whole point is to not pay people to do menial labor.
Right.
I don't want to pay people low wages, especially not, somebody overseas and low wages to put together clothing. I'm trying to do things a little bit differently. Try to make it as robotic as possible.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing too then. So is the idea that eventually you could get kind of like a distributed network of these things and start to lower local costs and actually, is that the idea or what?
Yeah. So I'm going to try to open source as much as I can without, angering the manufacturer of the machine. Mm-hmm. So obviously I won't be open sourcing their machine, but I'll be open sourcing everything around it. So my engineering toolchain for the front, any other hardware that I add on for tensioning or winding cones of yarn or anything like that. So
I'll tell you what would be cool that just popped into my head. It's the nerd in me. But it'd be awesome if you ordered one of these online, right? Yeah. And then you got an email alert that said your scarf is about to be printed, and you could send you an email, and then you go to the website and you can actually watch it being printed on a webcam.
Yeah, I'm hoping to record everybody's scarf being knit and have videos for them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we all I grew up with
we're
Mr.
nerds,
Rogers,
right?
and
Yeah,
I love watching
exactly.
how all the factories work.
Yep.
I think that's really cool part of, having the means of production means you can actually let people into the factory and they can see everything.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think it's
Plus-
cool.
Plus, it's a little like NASCAR, as if the spool goes off and the thread starts, the arm starts going everywhere.
Right.
You get to watch the crash too.
Oh no. I hope
Sure,
that doesn't happen.
It won't happen. I know.
Hopefully not so often. Yeah.
So where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, so the project I'm doing right now is called KnitYak, like the animal, like the furry yak. So knityak.com. And there's a link to the Kickstarter and a link to all the other social media possible. And yeah, that's where people can pledge for the next 14 days.
Awesome.
It has to get to 100,000, which is a big ask.
It's a big goal, yes.
a big goal.
But you said like the machine costs like 60 grand at least. So
And then the yarn is about 10 grand.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How much yarn do you get for that?
344 pounds, I calculated for the break-even amount.
How many sheep is that?
That's a lot of sheep. It's pretty much...
And are these Australian sheep? Because we make the best wool in the world. We make the finest wool in the world here in Australia.
It's...
If you didn't know.
The merino wool comes from New Zealand. I'm sorry.
Bloody sheep shaggers.
85... I think
Dave.
85% of the world's merino comes from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But it will
Yeah.
be spun and dyed in the U.S. in one of the last remaining wool mills that still spins
Right.
sheep to yarn kind of a setting. And they dye...
Sheep to yarn, sheep in one end.
The sheep don't... I mean, yeah, some people don't realize sheep don't die when you make yarn from their wool.
when you...
That's only if you have mutton at the same time, yeah.
Correct.
All right. Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, the poor sheep. I'm like, no.
Really?
If you
People like
didn't-
that.
If you didn't shear them, it would get matted, and then they wouldn't be able to walk
You're
around,
going to
and then
do
they
a
would
favor.
get
Yeah,
dyed,
you're doing
but-
them a favor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Wow.
Oh, love it.
And
That's
they're,
awesome.
yeah, very domesticated animals at this point. There's no real wild sheep that you
There's a
can
wild
take
sheep,
for-
you don't want to meet it anyways.
Not really.
Oh,
Yeah.
So how much you said, I mean, you're talking about the tensioners and everything else. I mean,
Yeah.
if you had to estimate the hardware that you have to put onto this thing, I mean, what do you think it'll be like? Is it mostly mechanical, or is there a lot of external control, or what?
Well, the other thing I'm going to have to do is build humidity and basically an HVAC system for the room where it is.
Oh,
Because it
wow.
likes high humidity, otherwise it drops stitches.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird.
Where Seattle is kind of a good place for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you
Yeah.
want someplace
Can
that's
imagine.
humid, but not so humid that things are going to rust and, cause mechanical
Singapore
problems.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So Seattle's actually a really, really good choice for doing textile manufacturing. That's the other reason why I landed here.
Interesting.
Wow.
Wow.
And, but I built an orchid growing case that has climate control in it.
Okay.
With a beagle bone black and a lot of sensors and ultrasonic mister and
Yeah, I saw that thing. Looks amazing.
fans.
Like the picture looks like it's like a fantasy inside the case kind of thing, because it's all foggy and stuff.
Yeah. I gave it to... So the other thing I didn't really talk about is I had a whole full hardware lab at home in Germany that I cleared out about a little over a year ago.
Oh.
So everything's gone.
Oh.
But it's good. No, but wait, before you cry tears for my oscilloscopes and my soldering irons, it's good because now I have a clean slate. So I had all those old projects that I had built or taken apart to rebuild and other things, like all my parts bins, everything's gone, which is a good thing. And kind of like reset to like a completely clean slate and thought, and traveled around for almost 11 months and thought really hard about what I really wanted to be doing. And that's what I'm doing. So
That's awesome.
it's good.
Sweet.
It's a little terrifying to get rid of every single piece of hardware.
I mean, you're gonna
ever
build
built.
it back up, right? I mean, that's
I
the
will
idea.
definitely build it back up. That's not a problem. My husband also does hardware hacking as well. So
Oh, nice.
my lab was, I had definitely more stuff. I basically had a vintage computer museum at home.
Oh yeah.
So
Right.
So you've lifted the burden of material things.
yes.
And reset to get more material things.
Yeah. I got down to
Yeah, I need to do that.
I got down to 2 suitcases. So when
Oh,
we left
wow.
Germany, I had 2 suitcases.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Yeah.
I've still got my original component cabinets from when I was 8 years old.
it. That's sweet.
When I was 8 years old, like, you know, like stuff I pulled apart in like the 70s and early 80s. It was like, oh, you know, like, it's just no, like, you know, all like, because you have to, you know, back then you actually desoldered parts and reused them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because they weren't easy to get. So, you know, I've still got those parts sitting in my crusty old drawers. It's like, oh, man. Haven't touched them in 30 years.
Yeah. So
It's good sad.
I didn't throw everything in a dumpster. I had friends come over and people had a lot of fun picking through everything and finding things that they
Nice.
could use and reuse. But the orchidarium was one of those things. So it's a huge glass with cabinet with curved glass fronts.
Yeah.
It looks very cool,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's really large. So I gave it to a friend who's in Berlin and they took it and they used it as a father-daughter project so that they can code on it and give it new functionality and stuff. So
Nice.
Very cool.
that's really cool. But anyway, so I've built climate control stuff. So I'm definitely going to build that into wherever the knitting machine lives.
Yeah.
Currently, it's looking like it's going to be in a shipping container.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's a bunch of rooms and kind of like welders and woodworkers and people who build motorcycles in a building in Soto in Seattle, which is a neighborhood, the south side of Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a new gravel courtyard that has freestanding shipping containers where each person is going to get their own shipping container. So I'm on the waiting list for that. And they said I could cut holes in the top and the side to do HVAC if I wanted. So
Plus, that means
yeah.
you can
Very
take it on your
cool.
next adventure. If you go to Costa Rica again or something, or Seattle doesn't work out, you throw it
I
on a
don't know if
ship.
it'll
Road
be so
trip.
mobile at that point because it'll have a really
Right.
heavy knitting machine in it, and it doesn't really like to be
Ouch.
shaken or moved or anything.
They're
once it's together.
right. I was going to say you can't knit while you're on the back of a truck,
Right.
you know,
No.
being moved.
Not so
All
much.
right.
Still,
It's not
I mean,
designed for like space or like.
yeah, but that's cool though too, because you mentioned like if you did end up going modular and then putting them in different spots in the country or in the world, then
Yeah.
you'd be able to replicate that kind of thing. So that's actually
Right.
really, I think that's really interesting
Yeah,
choice
yeah,
up
that's
front.
smart.
You know,
So I'd have a replicatable setup, yeah. So I could,
Yeah.
Wow.
set people on their way with a local franchise or whatever. So
awesome.
yeah, that would be cool. I mean, a shipping container doesn't have a lot of insulation, which is the only real downside of that. So
yeah.
I'm gonna have to insulate it a little bit, but
You could knit it a sweater.
I could knit it. Oh, that's a great idea. That is fantastic.
It's kind of like a chicken and egg thing, though, isn't it?
I have to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would take a while. Well, we should make sure people. Once again, the Kickstarter is called. It's under KnitYak.
KnitYak,
People
yeah.
should go check it out.
KnitYak.
The delivery is pre-holiday. Is that right or no?
No. So currently I'm kind of under promising and hoping to over deliver and hoping to deliver in January.
Okay.
But right now I'm telling people June of next year that I'll deliver.
Oh. Yep.
Hey, reality's better, I think. So
Yeah. It might be January, February,
yeah.
but it could be as late as June.
Okay. Well, people should buy it for themselves. Buy it for their friends. Don't buy it for the holiday.
It's very cool.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, where can people follow you on Twitter and all that sort of jazz?
Yeah.
Not Facebook, because we hate Facebook here.
Yeah. Twitter, I'm FBZ, the 3 letters.
Oh, that's... Well, I guess it's not common. It doesn't stand for anything, right? So it was easy to get.
Well, yeah, I've been on Twitter for 7 years. So,
Oh,
That
okay.
helps too. Yeah.
Early, yep. Early bird gets the worm.
yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I'm FBZ on Twitter. Then there's links to everything. So my personal website is fabienne.us, which is FABIENNE.us. And
And we will have links to all of the things we discussed here on our
Yeah.
page as well. So
We will.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for
joining us,
having me.
Fabs. It's been awesome.
Oh, this has been so much fun.
yeah.
I find this stuff fascinating.
I do too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now that you understand it, right? Chris?
Yeah, well, now that I know of it, I can go read more about it. So this is good.
Yeah.
So thank you for the enlightenment. I appreciate it, Fabs.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for having
Thanks. Catch you next time.
Okay.
All right. Bye. Okay, if you could start talking, that'd be good.
me. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, my name's Fabs, or Fabienne, or Fabienne if you're French, but not many people are.
You're not.
It's okay. Germans can't deal with my name because there's a masculine version of it, but not a feminine version in German.
Right.
So what do they say?
Oh, they assume I'm a dude and that I spelled my name wrong. Because I do
that's
tech.
great.
I mean, obviously.
That's great.
Of course. Oh, yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah, of course. No, you can't be a female, you know.
No.
No.
No, not possible.
No.